Okay, happy Friday. Today's video, we're covering chapters 7 and 8. That's the reading for today. But I actually just want to focus on one little verse that's easy to breeze and read right through, but that I think actually has a lot to say to who we are and who we're called to be today. And it's in chapter 8, verse 15. This is the start of David's rule. And we've been asking ourselves all through Samuel, what kind of king will David be? And we've gotten a little bit of evidence for what that looks like. We will get a whole lot more as we read all of this part of 2 Samuel. But in this verse, we're told the kind of king that David is in this moment. And that's what I want to focus in on. It says, "So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people." So in this way, David is modeling something that the kingdom of Israel, all of the people, all of God's people, were supposed to be. Throughout the Hebrew Bible, these two words, justice and equity, come up a lot. So I just want to touch on each of them. Justice is the Hebrew word mishpat. And when we think about justice today, I don't know, I won't speak for you. I often think of justice as someone getting what they deserve. Someone who's wronged me, who has to pay for the wrong that they've done. But mishpat, this Hebrew idea of justice, is much more about a sense of restorative justice. Justice where we see something that's wrong in the world. We believe that everyone should be treated with the dignity that they're owed as images of God. And we look out at the world and we see pockets where that's not happening, where systems of oppression and injustice and things that aren't just fair, where we see that taking place. And what restorative justice means is you actually take active steps toward righting those wrongs, to pulling people out of poverty, to breaking down unjust systems or calling out oppressive regimes. That's mishpat. And oh my goodness, is that not something that our world needs today? We are called to be people, first and foremost, of justice. People who don't just cry out when something happens, but take steps to restore people who are not being treated in the way that God calls for us to treat all people, which is with dignity and respect, as people who are created in God's image. And then he also says equity. Now, this word equity is the Hebrew word tzedakah, which is more often I've seen translated as righteousness. And the easy way to think about what this word means is right relationships. David is creating the kind of culture where people are being treated fairly, justly, where everyone is on a level playing field, where he's breaking down unjust systems and raising up people who have been oppressed. And he's creating a culture where people have right relationships with one another and right relationships with God. This is what this word talks about. Just think of righteousness as right relationships. And again, if there are two concepts that trickle through the generations to us today, who we are also called to be, it is these two words. Like David, we are called to be leaders that follow Jesus, that model justice and equity or righteousness. We're called to be people who don't just love God, but love others well. And part of loving others well means creating in our communities, and as much as we're able, places where people can be lifted out of poverty or lifted out of unjust systems or lifted out of systemic issues in our culture. That's who we're called to be. And so I know this is convicting of me this week. What does it look like for me to be someone who is not only seeing with open eyes areas where that's not happening, but using my voice, using my feet and hands to actually help lift people out of those situations as much as I'm able to? What am I doing to get my hands dirty when it comes to bringing restorative justice into the world? And remembering that our faith is not one-sided with God. It's a big component of it. But Jesus says, love God and love others. You cannot separate the two. And so right relationships, when we think about our faith, is never a solo sport. It's not just about us and God. Again, that's a big piece of it. But it's also about us and other people. So what does this look like for you this week? I hope you'll spend time just asking God to show you, open your eyes to systems of injustice in the world today, and to, in his kindness, grant you eyes to see where you have talent and resources and abilities and a voice to help right some of those wrongs. This is not just about big systemic issues, but like we all are in family systems or corporate systems or places where we work and volunteer and spend our time. Where even in those are there maybe little sneaky things that injustice is speaking into? What can you do to right some of those wrongs and to bring people out of situations where they're not being treated with the dignity that they deserve? This is who we're called to be as people of God. And we see David acting in that in this chapter. So let it be inspiration for us to follow suit, because that's what Jesus looked like. And we're called to be more like Jesus too. Justice, restorative justice, and right relationships. We'll see you back here next week.